All right, we're going to be taking a look at another video from crossexamine.org. Changing it up a little bit because this is apologist Tim Stratton. I usually cover Frank Turek, but he's equally as bad at apologetics. The title of the video is The Ontological Argument Explained. Is God like a great pizza? So the pizza thing is more of a refutation to the ontological argument, because if you can define a maximally great being into existence, then you can define a maximally great pizza into existence, which I feel is true. I think it's a pretty good counter argument to it, and I'm sure we'll get into it based on the title of the video. But the ontological argument is something like if it is possible a maximally great being exists, existence is greater than non-existence, therefore a maximally great being exists because being maximally great includes existence. Let's see what he has to say about it.
Need to see that God exists. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tim Stratton for crossexamined.org. As a theologian and apologist who often provides a cumulative case for the existence of God, I'm frequently asked to disclose my favorite argument in my repertoire. Out of the couple dozen arguments or so, consider one of my typical top 6 favorite arguments for the existence of God.
If the ontological argument made it into his top 6, 7 and beyond must be absolutely terrible, because this is a really bad argument.
This video will focus on the ontological argument. Now, there's several forms of the ontological argument, and they usually focus on the idea of the possible existence of a necessary and maximally great being. What many
A genuine question that I have is, why do Christian apologists, when they ever talk about the philosophical arguments for God, say the word necessary so unnecessarily? William Lane Craig, this dude says unnecessary so many times he says necessary so many times in his arguments, and it's just maybe there's something I'm missing, but it seems irrelevant to add that word in there.
Consider to be the definition of God. That is to say, is it possible that a necessary and maximally great being exists? Or is there some illogical and incoherent notion about a being who exists necessarily and is omnipotent, perfect in power?
You're necessarily putting me to sleep, brother. Get on with it.
Omniscient, perfect in knowledge, and omnibenevolent, perfect in love. The argument usually looks something like this.
Before he gets into it, I want to just quickly say that the ontological argument is not an argument for the God he believes in. It's an argument for a God, some type of God, not the Christian God. And apologists are incredibly dishonest, but I think even he would have to, if you were to ask him, he would have to admit this, that no, it is not an argument for the Christian God. It's just an argument for some type of godlike being.
Premise 1. It is possible that God, a maximally great being, exists. 2. If it is possible that God exists, then God exists in some possible worlds. 3. If God exists in some possible worlds, then God exists in all possible worlds. 4. If God exists in all possible worlds, then God exists in the actual world. 5. If God exists in the actual world, then God exists. The ontological argument is logically valid and really comes down to the first premise.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's logically valid. Let's get those back up here. It doesn't matter if it's logically valid. Logically valid does not mean true. Now, if the premises in your syllogism follow, then the conclusion should be true, yes. But just because it's valid doesn't mean it's true. For just a quick example, you could say premise 1, all dogs are cats. Premise 2, I have a dog. Premise 3, therefore I have a cat. Because all dogs are cats. So I have a dog, but I have a cat. That's a logically valid argument. It doesn't mean it's sound. It doesn't mean it's true.
Really comes down to the first premise. as the others follow from the rules of modal logic. So, even if an atheist doesn't think that God probably exists, if one affirms that there is even the smallest of chances that they could be wrong because the concept of God is logically possible, then God exists. In fact, Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous atheists in the world, has provided all.
So real quick, if you're going to say that it's possible that something exists, then it exists. Again, you'd have to use this. You could use this argument for anything. You could say, let's go back to his premises. So you could say it is possible that a maximally great shoe exists. If it is possible that a maximally great shoe exists, then a maximally great shoe exists in some possible worlds. And go on from there. The conclusion would have to be, therefore, a maximally great shoe exists. And that's a counter argument to show that if you're going to accept this argument to show that a maximally great being exists, then you're going to have to accept that you can use this argument to show that a maximally great anything exists, which is obviously ridiculous. But that's not really the defeater to this argument for me. I'll get into that
and really comes down to the first premise, as the others follow from the rules of modal logic. So, even if an atheist doesn't think that God probably exists, if one affirms that there is even the smallest of chances that they could be wrong because the concept of God is logically possible, then God exists.
Okay. So remember what he says here. If there's the smallest of chances that he possibly exists, because the argument that I feel is a defeater is, what if there's the smallest of chances that he doesn't exist?
In fact, Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous atheists in the world, has provided all the evidence we need to see that God exists. Dawkins has famously proclaimed, "There's probably no God. Now stop worrying and enjoy your life." With those words in mind, here's what I call Richard Dawkins's ontological argument. Premise 1. There's probably no God. Now stop worrying and enjoy your life. 2. Therefore, it's possible that God, a maximally great being, exists.
Did he
3.
just add another premise in and he's going to go through the exact same argument?
Then God exists in some possible worlds. 4.
Yeah, okay.
If God exists in some possible worlds, then God exists in all possible worlds. 5. If God exists in all possible worlds, then God exists in the actual world. 6. If God exists in the actual world, then God exists. 7. Therefore, God exists. Thank you, Richard Dawkins.
Okay. So I guess maybe with this up on the screen, it'll be a good time to just go into what I feel is a defeater for this argument. So premise 1, there's probably no God. Well, we don't have to read all that, but there's probably no God. Therefore, it is possible that God doesn't exist. Because if there's probably no God, that means it's possible he does exist. It also means it's possible that he doesn't exist. And then just plug that in through the rest of the argument. So we'll run through it. There's probably no God. Therefore, it's possible that God doesn't exist. If it's possible that God doesn't exist, then God doesn't exist in some possible worlds. If God doesn't exist in some possible worlds, then God doesn't exist in all possible worlds. If God doesn't exist in all possible worlds, then God doesn't exist in the actual world. If God doesn't exist in the actual world, then God doesn't exist. Therefore, God doesn't exist. You can use this argument to show that anything is true and that it isn't true simultaneously by just changing the words around. If it's an argument for everything, it's an argument for nothing. This is a terrible argument. And it's in his top 6.
Now, some think that this argument is too easy or too good to be true. However, this argument only seems to work with the concept of a maximally great being, as all parodies of this argument have been shown to fail, such as a maximally great pizza.
Oh, that pizza looks fantastic, but I'm curious to see why a maximally great pizza would not fit into that syllogism. All right, get on with it.
Well, couldn't you have a parallel argument for the greatest possible pizza?
Hold on,
No,
hold on.
because the notion of the greatest possible
Did they record this thing with a Nokia? What is this?
pizza is logically incoherent. A greatest possible pizza would be metaphysically necessary in its existence, and therefore it could not be eaten, and therefore it couldn't be a pizza.
This is William Lane Craig. I'm surprised he didn't use... Oh, he did use the word necessary, didn't he?
Metaphysically necessary in its
Gee,
existence.
okay, all right. He's okay. So what he's saying, I believe, let's listen to it one more time.
Incoherent. A greatest possible pizza would be metaphysically necessary in its existence, and therefore it could not be eaten, and therefore it couldn't be a pizza.
So it couldn't be eaten, so it can't be a pizza. It can be a pizza and still not be eaten. I mean, I can prove this to you. Go to the store, grab a pizza, purchase it, bring it home, put it in the oven, cook it, take it out, and throw it in the trash. At what point is it not a pizza? It's still a pizza. But regardless, I think what he's saying is that if you eat it, it no longer exists. And existence, being part of being maximally great, it's intrinsic to it. So if you eat it, it's no longer maximally great. It's still a pizza. I think what he's trying to say is that it's no longer a maximally great pizza because it's eaten. But what about a pizza that in its inherent properties of being maximally great self-replenishes? So no matter how many bites you take, it just keeps replenishing. Now you have a maximally great pizza. Just go back to his where they at? So take the word God and just put pizza in there. It's possible that a maximally great pizza exists. If that pizza exists, then if it's possible that that pizza exists, then it exists in some possible worlds. If that pizza exists in some possible worlds, then you get the point. You can show that you can define anything into existence, and you can define anything out of existence with this argument. Just take the opposite using the pizza. So we did it with God. Now we can use pizza. It is possible that you don't even have to put the maximally great pizza. You can cut all that out. You can say it is possible that pizza doesn't exist. Is that possible? Well, sure. Maybe we're living in the Matrix. Maybe it's all digital code. Let's just go with that. So if it's possible that pizza doesn't exist, then pizza doesn't exist in some possible worlds. Go on from there. You get the point. Let's go back to this toaster oven recording.
Well, that gets my attention and provides further reason to think that a maximally great being, God, really does exist.
I mean, we've been through that already.
For more on the ontological argument, consider the work of Dr. William Lane Craig at reasonablefaith.org. For more content from me,
it's necessary that you necessarily consider the work of Dr. William Lane Craig necessarily.
You can subscribe to the Free Thinking Ministries YouTube channel and follow
Free Thinking Ministries. I hope it's as good as Cross-Examined, because that will provide countless hours of more content to go over.
Follow me at freethinkinc.org.
I will.
And for more exclusive content from myself and other great apologists, make sure to subscribe to crossexamined.org below.
Am I subscribed? Yeah, we're going to subscribe. We're subscribed to Cross-Examined. Okay, well, fact, I hope... Wow, hey, we already listened to you. Get out of here. You're not going again. I think I did a pretty good job of explaining why the ontological argument is not a good argument to use, because anything that can explain everything explains nothing.